Now over to another question. Geeta Gopinath, Bill Gates, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai. They all love this one thing. So what are we talking about? India's digital public infrastructure, or DPI. From Aadhaar to UPI to account aggregator to ONDC. What's the collective impact of this going to be? And why should you and I care about it? To answer all of those questions and more, we have the right set of panelists joining you in just a bit. Before that, before the panelists, let me also ask you to please put your hands together. So I invite Nikhil Kumar, co-founder Setu, to moderate the next session. Thanks a lot, Nikhil. Please come, take your seat. And the panelists for the session are Dilip Aspe, MD and CEO, NPCI. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit louder. Pramod Verma, Chief Architect, UIDAI. T. Koshi, CEO, ONDC, and Shalini Warrior, Executive Director of Federal Bank. Thanks a lot to all of you for being here. We look forward to your session. Nikhil, over to you.
Thank you so much. Obviously this panel doesn't need an introduction. I know all of them personally. I'm very tempted to share my story of what their introductions are, but in the interest of time.
This is like a house check.
And I don't think half an hour is good time for us. Like, we will probably can do this whole day. Pramod, without, any delay, I want to ask you, there's a lot of talk about DPI. It's become a, language now used by politicians very extensively, to technologists, to entrepreneurs, to media and everybody. If you were to explain DPI to a 5-year-old, what is
I don't think this audience is a 5-year-old. They're very interesting people.
Yeah, but like if you were to explain it with an example, just to set the stage on what exactly DPI means, how would you explain it?
Yeah, explaining to 5-year-olds it's hard. But I think we have seen infrastructure, physical infrastructure like railroads and highways, and we have heard how economy changes. When the US built highways, the entire economy around the highways change because transportation gets easier. People move out of main city, everybody being in the same city, to suburbs. Many implications are multifold implications of infrastructure. Electricity grid, plumbing, and all the things are natural physical infrastructure that we are used to. But in the digital realm, as the society goes more and more digital, it is imperative for every country and every society to imagine what are the digital infrastructure that make sense in the digital world. Similar to highways and similar to digital. What are the digital highways? What does it do? It allows entrepreneurship. It allows, sort of combinatorial innovation. I'll tell you what it is. By combining many things, many innovation happened that we did not originally anticipate. And then we also see economic growth. That's what we are after, right? Through any infrastructure thinking. But in the digital world, we have seen telecom infrastructure. Classic example. I actually repeat that so many times we have seen telecom infrastructure. Today, I can take up an Android phone in India on Airtel network, pick up the phone and ring somebody in the US who may be using an iPhone on an AT&T or a Verizon network. And the voice travels seamlessly, instantly. So somehow we figured out in the digital world, if you create a network, and it's a good topic to set it up for, the big bosses here. So, the network effect through open, what you call interoperable mechanisms. I'm using some terms that are harder sometimes, but GSM protocol was that meant for doing that, right? That allowed. But nobody insisted this is how you should build the operating system. This is how you should build. It was actually it was done through innovators in the marketplace. Internet is a classic example where an HTTP protocol and TCP/IP and HTTP protocol, and you should read original Sir Tim Berners-Lee's He very clearly said, either we will have a world where World Wide Web will be used by everyone, or we'll have a world where WWW, World Wide Web, will be used by no one. There is no intermediate. That's because the effect of open networks is so large and unimaginable that subsequent innovations will allow everyone as a humanity to participate. So telecom is a human scale network, internet is a human scale network, but if you what happens to combinatorial innovation is what you don't see coming. Internet independently happened. HTTP independently happened. GPS completely independently happened as a DARPA project to bomb places when Clinton in 99, he put out GPS as a public domain, it became a public, sort of economic utility in that sense. Then smartphones came, cloud computing came. But then the combination thereof is what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs reimagine the possibilities of how transportation or commerce can all change, or payments can change, which we'll talk about today, by combining internet, smartphone, GPS, and all the other things. But internet by itself is a public utility. It's not owned by a company, it's not owned by individuals, it's owned by no one. It is such a decentralized network powered by open protocols. Very, very important. And nothing, I'll end with that, nothing at human scale will work without interoperability. Even for MasterCard and Visa, they had to come up with the EMV standards to create amplification and scale. Because you can't have 3333 POS machines and 3333 everything in every device. Eventually, you have to create interoperability as a mechanism for scale. That is at human scale, if you want to do. And that's what digital public infrastructure. But India has built much more, called India Stack, which we'll talk later. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, I think none of us would have gotten here without, DPI in some sense. And obviously, we're all using DPI every day without realizing, how it's impacting and, all of us. Dilip, I want to come to you. You've been doing payments for a long time. Started, I don't know if everybody knows, Dilip was number one employee of NPCI. And, he's been around and seen, he's number one, period. And I want to ask you, there have been so many payment systems that you've been exposed to. And I'm assuming somewhere in this journey, you were infected by the DPI bug. I want to know what that journey looked like. And, if you were to explain to us, like, there is something special about UPI. And, we use this every day, but we don't ask this question about why is it so special. If you were to explain to us from a UPI angle, because you were part of IMPS as well, just like what makes it special, like how would you like call out a payment system which is a DPI versus, a regular payment system?
See, I think the way I look at it, and I think the DPI definition is evolving, right? I see that it's getting clearer and clearer, and many countries, we're going to talk about it, many countries will have a very different view of looking at DPI than what we have done. And I think we must give a credit to RBI that, starting NPCI as a not-for-profit entity, what it means is it can make profit. We heard Samir talking about, we do 1.5 lakh crore daily value.
People say you're the most
profitable. That's what I'm saying.
Fintech
I'm just responding
India.
to that. We do about 1.5 lakh crore rupees daily settlement. So technically, even from a risk management and settlement guarantee standpoint, we at least should have a net worth of at least 10 to 15% of that, right? So that's that much of a value. So that's the answer to Samir, but that's a separate issue altogether. But what we do is, while we design the payment systems in NPCI, or we operate in NPCI, the profiteering is not the objective, right? It's not listed, so the stock market considerations are not there, right? So valuation considerations are not there. So I think these are, basic foundational first principles of DPI. In my assessment, my own assessment, I might be wrong. The second way I look at it, and I think there is an internal view and there is an external view. The internal view is the DPIs, and I'm talking about and DPI is a journey, and if you want to make NPCI as a DPI successful in the long run, and long run is like 20 years, 30 years, the DPIs must be innovative, the DPIs must be super efficient, and DPIs must pass on the benefit of economies of scale to their participants, right? That's a internal view. What could be the external view? The DPIs are able to build the ecosystem, diverse ecosystem. This could be one of the, so it's not servicing to one section as Pramod was talking about. We have a private guys innovating, banks innovating, and those kind of things. External view of DPI should be having the best of the governance mechanism tight. If it's a payment system DPI, it should be tightly regulated by RBI, right? Because it should have a very high oversight. And the third external overview can be as transparent, right? To the extent possible, right? To the market, it should work on a consensus method as much as possible. Obviously, everything can't be open up, everything can't be decided by the consensus. But I think these are the 3 internal and 3 external views I look at it for the DPIs.
Oh, that's amazing. Shalini, I want to come to you. We both have builders. Pramod is the architect. Dilip runs NPCI, and there are mixed reactions on financial institutions on the impact of DPI. Some banks love UPI, some banks don't love UPI.
All the banks love UPI.
All the banks love you. Dilip says so.
And I agree with him.
Super. If we look at all the digital public infra that's been in India, starting with Aadhaar, the journey started back in 2008, to, lots of other infrastructure that's been built around eKYC, eSign, DigiLocker, UPI, now account aggregator. There has been a purpose behind all of this. There's been a larger purpose for various different set of people about how do we really bring societal change in a country like India, especially with the lens of financial inclusion. I think, as a country, one of our largest problems has been this. We've been at it from the time we have gotten independence. Probably the last 10 years is where we have made enormous orbit change. And I genuinely want to ask you, in this shift that's happening where there is platform shifts with this, as Pramod was talking about, internet, smartphone, and digital public infra all being available and all of these things coming together, are you really seeing change at a grassroots level? Like as a banker, are you able to reach people that you were not able to reach before? Are people getting access to services that they wouldn't before? Can you give us, what's the inside story look like for you?
Thanks, Nikhil. I think banks like us, I don't know whether we could even visualize life without Aadhaar, UPI, etc. It's been such an intrinsic part of our life now that I can't visualize what would happen, because we do, a bank like Federal, for example, would do about 8,000, 10,000 account opening a day. And in a manual world, it would have been impossible to do that kind of number without a cost burden of a very high. But today, thanks to Pramod and the team of people, we've got, the whole Aadhaar infra that we ride off, whether it's identification, whether it's signature, whether it's any of those. And payments, for example, thanks to Dilip and UPI, I mean, nobody looks at IMPS any longer. So I'm just giving you
That's
those.
Also a pet project.
Yeah. 2 examples, but I think where on financial inclusion, since you said this, Nikhil, let me just give you 2 examples, which I think go to the grassroots of what we're doing. One example is what we're working with dairy farmers in Gujarat. This is a project jointly with the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, AMOL as we all know it, and RBI Innovation Hub, and a Fintech partner and ourselves. One of the issues that dairy farmers have had is, one, there's been a lot of cash in the system, so how do you overcome that cash? 2 is their access to credit when they want to elevate themselves. They want to buy 2 more cows, for example. So we've crafted a program called the Digital Bovine Loan, Digital Cattle Loan,
where it's entirely based on digital infrastructure of the kind that the teams have built over here. The credit is assessed on the basis of the pouring history that the farmer has had over the last 1 year, which is accessed through APIs. And using that, we pre-approve literally the loans. He goes on to a marketplace where he chooses what he wants. The loan is pre-approved. The seller is told that the buyer has been approved for this. You can go and pick up the cattle whenever you're ready, and it's all done on the basis of this infrastructure. So that's kind of access to credit of a kind which normally the farmer would not have had access to, and it elevates his lifestyle, because from 2 he can go to 4, from 4 he can go to 8. And what's even more notable, I think everybody knows, dairy farmers in Gujarat are primarily women. So, that really means financial inclusion. So that's one example. Another example is where we're working, and this is a little more complicated because we've worked with the Tamil Nadu government, RBI, Innovation Hub, another fintech partner, and ourselves to deliver digital Kisan loans in Tamil Nadu. One of the issues that has happened in the access to credit for a farmer in most states has been, how do you authenticate the land holding of the farmer? It always becomes a concern. But here, working with Tamil Nadu government and the APIs we've had in place, the entire infra has been put in place. It's completely assisted digital because these guys need that assistance. But there is just no paper involved. And what used to take on a minimum 4 weeks to do a loan is today down to 10 minutes. Actually, 5 minutes. Rajesh Bansal may not be in the audience. He will kill me if I say 10 minutes, because 5 minutes is our commitment and we've delivered on it. So this is again built on that entire infra from, obviously authentication through Aadhaar, the APIs from the Tamil Nadu government, e-sign, because we don't do physical signature, so the entire thing. So these are just 2 examples of where, the core of financial inclusion has been enabled through the infra that, Pramod and Dilip and the team have built for us.
We should do a word count on the number of times Shalini used the word APIs as a banker. And, I don't know if it's Bangalore or if it's DPA.
You've known me for some time now. I wake up thinking of APIs.
So all credit to Shalini. Then, I usually introduce her as the most beloved API banker in the country. So, most of the fintech partnerships, no reason, and there's no doubt why they are with Federal. Kushi, I want to come to you. New DPI, new kid in the block. Everyone's excited. Globally, everybody is watching. One of the most ambitious DPI attempts. Just for those who don't know, Koshi was part of the DPI journey with Aadhaar, and then you've been part of a lot of gigs, and now you see yourself here. One question everybody asks is like, in the startup world, we talk about this idea of product market fit, and VCs only give us money if we have PMF, otherwise we don't get funded. So what does that look like for ONDC? Do you have such riders from the government or from your investors? And I also want to ask you, we talk about this, everybody understands the potential of ONDC, especially us. We look at it from a consumer's perspective, lots of debate around, okay, I used to pay 500 rupees on Swiggy, now I'm paying 300 rupees on ONDC and so on. So obvious cost benefits to consumers like us. But I want you to tell us a real story of, what is it really happening on ground? And since it's a long game, why should we all be patient? 2 questions. One is PMF and one is story from the ground.
Thanks, Nikhil. And, as he said, I'm the new kid in town, although I don't look like a kid. But it is too early to give a number and say the product market fit. Because it's a very ambitious project and a program that is expected to completely transform commerce. So there's probably would have heard this 40% rule in product market fit. It says when 40% of your consumers feel that life is empty without this product, then you have reached it. But I think it's too early for me to say whether 40% of the potential market, that is the whole of the country, is there. But I will say it in the other way around. And 60% of the potential ecosystem partners today feel that it's going to make a big difference. They're still hoping and they believe it. And that can be seen from the kind of progress that is happening. from on the variety of segments. If you really look at when we really started pushing in January, we had some 500-600 merchants. Today we have almost 100,000 merchants.
100,000.
Merchants.
Wow.
About 60% of them are taxi drivers and auto drivers. 40% of them are retail people. And we can see in the coming months a significant increase that is happening there. And we had 50 transactions a day. Not that, compared to millions that everybody does, we are still early. But if you look at 3 segments which has gone really took off, it is doing something like 70, 80,000 transactions a day. And what we are trying to do is that probably we believe that by end of this year, calendar year, we'll reach 200,000 transactions a day, half of which coming from services like mobility and half coming from the others. And more importantly, like I can see the kind of traction it is building. If I give examples, everybody believes that this is now opening up humongous possibilities of opportunity for big and small. If you look at, that's why you see the commitment coming. For example, you would have seen the announcement from Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises. They are putting a couple of 100 crore budget to really help small and medium enterprises to leverage. Because in the earlier days, digitization meant efficiency only for most of them. And that was not an easy concept to understand. Today you are telling digitization is about market access and sales and profit. And I think that is a very, very strong agenda. That's why if you look at people like SIDBI and NABARD are having specialized programs for encouraging their segments of small merchants and to come. Enterprises like huge and large enterprises like Unilever and P&Gs of the world, they realize that the traditional commerce is going to completely change. In fact, we have had a number of workshops with people like ITC, HUL and so on and so forth, who believe that it is going to completely change the way the Kirana, the small merchant, who's got his own jugaad to really, in a very smart and efficient fashion, meet the requirement of the people around him at a much cost-effective fashion. So it is not about throwing money to attract drugged users. It is about bringing in efficiency, which can bring people with a specialized skill, as Pramod was saying, to do what they are good at, and helping and having a language to stitch them all together to give seamless experience to the seller or the buyer. And that is going to be the big change.
Any story that you can think of, which, on the market access story, because like you said, sometimes we operate from intuitions and beliefs than just numbers. Any story that you can think of, like in the recent days that you came across?
I mean, we are only recent months, so I'll have to tell you the stories in the recent months. What comes in, there are many. In fact, we are giving a lot of focus on that segment. SIDBI helped to bring Kanchipuram weavers. I'll take one example, Divya Silk. Otherwise, she would have been only giving to some large intermediaries. In the last 2 months, she's live in the system. She had more than 170 orders, which is giving about 4.5 lakh rupees. Probably you had heard of SHGs and Kudumbashri, which is an SHG consortium from Kerala state, which has been enabled through the help of the women entrepreneurs. They have had few hundred orders already there. So we are seeing these kind of diverse kind of enterprise. And another one, there was a very, very enterprising woman called Apurva. So she's sort of going to help some 17, 8 of SHGs in Maharashtra to bring their kitchen products, if I just use, traditional product, to make it available. They feel that it would be scaling up only through something like this because it's giving them equal opportunity without having to spend humongous amount of brand building exercise or not being there at all. So these are the exciting thing that starts up, gives us a lot of confidence. And so there are many more such foundations, from philanthropic foundation like the Gates and so on and so forth, to, like I said, the other financial institutions and government, all of them coming together. Mandeshi Foundation in Maharashtra. So all of them are coming together because there is, what is making a difference? It is giving them an opportunity of market access, which otherwise is not there, except for those people with deep pockets.
I think this is it's a very important, mental model, because I think, we've been thinking about OnDC just in the model of efficiency, but what it is truly is actually empowerment. Pramod, I want to come back to you. You've obviously been on top of so many DPIs in India, starting with Aadhaar. It's lots of dabblement, education, skills, healthcare, and many more that continues, commerce, mobility. when we talk about DPI, generally UPI comes up, as the poster child, because it's doing so many billions of transactions and so on. I want to ask you, what is the mental model one needs to build? Earlier today we had a few entrepreneurs like Samir and Nitin spoke about, even for a startup, it's a 10 to 20-year-old journey, right? They're all talking about it, saying, boss, 8-year VC cycles will not do, and so on. And that's at a startup level. When we are looking at the country level, what kind of patience should we all build, right? And, and how do you do this? And especially because, there have been successes, there have been failures, there have been experiments. How would you categorize them? How should the public think about this and why DPIs are important? Why should we continue?
Very loaded. Patience. Infrastructure takes decades. Aadhaar, if you really look at it, it's been 13, 14 years. So it takes a while before it assimilates into the society. That assimilation takes time. And then innovation cycle on top of that. One is assimilation, which is the scale of adoption. And second is subsequent innovation. That has to continuously happen. It's a multi-decade journey. And it's been a little bit tricky always. Because I think nobody has patience. And I think it's very hard to tell a politician, for example, that wait for 2 decades. I think my election cycles
I think
are
the
much
equivalent,
shorter, right?
5 years cycle.
Yeah, I know. So what am I going to tell my constituency? So I think it is important that we have to break it down and create milestones. And we have had multiple milestones to celebrate. I think if society doesn't celebrate intermediate success, it's very, very hard. So celebration is an integral part of a success of DPI. We have celebrated, Aadhaar success, UPI success, even during the journey, and continue to celebrate. And he says, he's planning what 10 billion a day, 1 billion a day, 10 billion. So he's planning next decade, right? But we are already celebrating. I think it's important to continue to do that. But I think what we are also seeing is that why do we build DPI? It's actually where you see a significant fragmentation. When you see a large fragmentation that's going on, you tend to think, can we create some sort of mechanism to defragment without actually building a platform? And that's very, very key. And that's one mental model that we have shifted. We could have done one app, like a Paytm free app, and say, okay, let's do it.
We didn't know Beam. No.
Yeah, but that was just because we had to launch something, right? So I think other than launching some inauguration thing, Beam is hardly capturing any market space, frankly speaking, right? Same thing will happen to ONDC. ONDC will need many, many apps to succeed, but not one app. So they're all networks. UPI is a network. UPI is not a platform. ONDC is a network. And the network thinking takes even longer. And that's where entrepreneurs have to align. Entrepreneurs have to find. But if you look back to UPI, what you see, and eSign and DigiLocker are two of my children who have not fully yet grown up.
Not
Okay, yeah. Although Abhishek Singh was here, I would say, huge success, right? 170 million users in DigiLocker. But I think we have so much more we can do with digital credentialing, paperless credentialing, and we'll get to it. That patience is needed. eSign is one of those classic cases where we still cut trees like crazy and sign papers. Why? We have IT Act, we have full legal backing, and we have full eSign as an interoperable.
Pramod, I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think paper signing, I don't recollect the last time I signed a physical agreement on behalf of the bank.
Okay.
No, I'm honest. I'll just give you one quick example. As you know, RBI has requested banks like us to redo locker agreements. Locker agreements. And the practical challenge is a locker is normally joint hirer. 2 people will hire.
Yeah.
And I have an non-resident customer base of about 40%. The male is typically somewhere in the Gulf earning the money, and the spouse is in Kerala, and they both hire us. So we just used eSign. We said we sent it by eSign to the non-resident who already had an Aadhaar, did an eSign. The spouse on ground did an eSign, and the agreement got signed that way. So eSign as an integral part of our lives is huge.
I think it's sometimes my impatience speaking through, saying that if we go HR workflows and if recruitment letters, and today we don't sign them, we don't make it authentic. DigiLocker and eSign has much more we can do to create trust, much higher trust and reduced cost. When the cost reduces dramatically and trust increases, you'll have a lot more access opening up to much more than what we are normally seeing. But I think what is really entrepreneur's job. Entrepreneur's job is almost always challengers, and PhonePe was a challenger. They didn't almost exist when UPI. They rode the momentum really well. It's a hard work, no question about it. No entrepreneurship is easy. You've been there. You've been lucky. By the way, you're a pretty lucky boy. But otherwise, very hard, hard battle. And a lot of times you get it wrong. A lot of times you pivot and you keep recorrecting. You leave aside the VC FUD or whatever the pushed valuation FUD that is going through. Entrepreneurship is here to stay. There is no other way. There is no other way. 1.4 billion people can be formalized into a society and actually have healthcare, education, commerce opportunities, learning opportunities, access to financial and capital opportunities. No other way. Unless entrepreneurs stand up. But you have to do a good job at it. And that is why I think OnDC and UPI has shown that can be done. But again, UPI is very minimum. UPI is actually very thin. It only moves money. OnDC is
much more
wild.
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell you, we have not even scratched the surface of where OnDC can take this country. But we need challengers. We need entrepreneurs who are saying, I can see as bigger a play as internet. Internet as a network changed the shape and form of human society. How we change. And a lot of entrepreneurs tried. Some of them succeeded. Some of them partially succeeded. Some of them utterly failed. But you have to try. If you don't try, if you don't have the balls to try, don't try. Don't play the game.
See,
it's very important.
Pramod lives in 2050, Yeah. He's in 2050 right now, talking to us in 2023. Some of us are in 2010. Right, I'm saying so that this is the
much catch up to this.
This is the conversation. But I think I agree with his one point that I think because we are in India, I think the scale expectations have gone crazy. Right? Shalini said that IMPS. Nobody remembers IMPS. IMPS did last month 500 million transactions.
They told you it's
5 lakh crore. Right? So I'm just saying that it looks very small. So that's an impact to the scale. And second thing which I was just telling Pramod, that fundamentally what any of the DPIs are doing, and which I think the DG in the morning also spoke about, is there are products, right? And the products are pretty much similar, right? There are some innovation, there are some places innovations have happened on the product itself, and I'll talk about it. But what is changing is how we are delivering the product to the last mile, right? So it's a complete unbundling of the service and service offered to the last mile. And I think whether it's OnDC, so this unbundling is happening and creating a community of the guys who are offering the service and guys who are offering the similar service to the service providers, whether it's a banking, OnDC, and in that process, create a huge ecosystem around it, right? And which is able to do part of that unbundled job, right? In that whole process, whether he's building the delivery chains and the logistics chains and those kind of things. On the point on he spoke about and you spoke about the e-sign and those kind of things. I think it's going to get tokenized. So let me also supplement Pramod in 2050 that it is going to get tokenized. Whether it's an agreement, whether it's your university degree, whether your credentials. And I think we must look at, Bangalore should start some of the models which will start representing tokenization, asset tokenization credentials, so that we don't need to go anywhere, right? The consumer is empowered with a tokenized asset in his hands.
Dilip, fintechs have a big problem with you, right? You know why? They say you are innovating too fast. It's super hard for people to catch up. If you rile up a bunch of payment or fintech founders, they'll be like, boss, this is too fast. This is
so if they are saying so, we need more fintechs, because the fintechs who are there, they have become so big that they are saying NPCI is fast. So we need more such challenges what Pramod was saying.
What's keeping you awake? You know, I know you're on the race to 1 billion transactions a day, but I want to know when you're doing such scale, right? And still you are like, I want to get back to office today. What's keeping you up and running? Like, what's next on NPCI's mind? Like, what?
So we have GFF coming, so I'm not listing up the product launches. But I think Nikhil, the one point is, and there are 2-3 aspects which we keep looking at. One is, we are somewhere approximately 10% of the penetration of the country of the scale, size, and stature of India should be, right? So there is a 10x growth which is still left out in payments. So you can, in commerce it could be 1000x, insurance, investment could be multiple of 1000x. So that is the growth we have to deliver. And in my assessment, payment delivers a kind of a denominator in that whole process, right? While the way the data helped to be a denominator for variety of internet-based services, content, and those kind of things, payments becomes that layer for the financial services, so 10x growth. Second is, RBI has recently permitted credit. So I think we being such an under-penetrated country, and again, 1000x growth possible on credit. So how do we look at a large-scale, low-ticket, low-risk credit system? We have started with credit on UPI, and we are waiting for the guidelines from RBI on digital credit on UPI. And obviously, last but not the least, is the whole global interoperability, right? So today, India is sort of self-sufficient on payments, right? So while we have started our careers on, the West told us this is the way you should do it, and we were like copycat and in the catch-up mode, but fortunately last 10 years has been great. I think the similar approach is required in the cross-border payments, cross-border remittances, cross-border trades, and I think India must take a lead to demonstrate to the world, yes, in 15 seconds you can debit one country's bank account and credit the other country's bank account. And India-Singapore project, which RBI and MAS did, we are demonstrated today we can do such things. So I think India must take such a larger role in the global ecosystem to convert the inefficient global transfers to the global financial internet, which is very similar to the way we have done it for the domestic payment system.
No, absolutely. One of the things is we speak about account aggregator. I think the second order effect of UPI is account aggregator, right? Because account aggregator as an ecosystem wouldn't exist if people were not doing digital transactions. Your bank statements you're not going to have digital trails. So in some sense, it's this whole combinatorial innovation that's happening, Aadhaar leading to bank accounts leading to UPI, UPI leading to account aggregator leading to credit, and credit leading to commerce. We're just in this beautiful flywheel that's happening. Shalini, very quickly, you're a preferred partner first, API bank. We've spoken about this. Would any of this happen, unless the role of DPI, how do you see this? Would there a world that would have existed?
Very difficult for me to visualize, Nikhil. I think we've been very, very dependent on the DPI stuff that has been delivered, and it has kind of eased life, reduced costs. So I just can't visualize a thing. Today, Federal has about 400 odd APIs, about 50 partners, and we're working extensively with a lot of the partners. The ethos and philosophy has been, one, collaboration with Fintechs rather than competition. Two, use the infrastructure that the country has provided to bring benefits to customers through the Fintech. So I just can't visualize anything, and therefore, a world without that would have been difficult to work with.
Kushi, one last question. There's a running joke in India, especially with internet companies. All roads lead to financial services. All roads lead to lending. We hear something is cooking in OnDC, where financial services are now going to be part of OnDC. What's this new spin? Can you talk a little bit about, what that means?
Let me put the context for you. when I say commerce, what is our expectation? In few years' time, every product or service which is relevant to a broad cross-section of users will make their product catalog visible in the open network using this open protocol. And diverse kind of buying applications will come and help their relevant kinds of buyers to access the products relevant. So we just started with grocery and food and mobility and any other. And finance products is natural and extension. And I believe that probably in the next couple of months, we will publish the necessary protocol, and Pramod is smiling. He's the one who's helping me to do that. And I think that will be just a beginning for all of us to cooperate.
So are we going to see bank accounts, insurance products, mutual funds all becoming available
So
on
we're shaping
OnDC?
up.
He's putting you on the dock.
We set our ambition, and we have people in the industry. For each segment that we took up, we have the experts in the industry with guidance from people like Pramod and Dilip to shape up the thing. So we have to get it right. But what I'm saying, it is very possible and doable. And that is saying with the confidence of having discussed with these people already working with us.
But Koshi, in the morning, Deputy Governor said, think like RBI. in the morning.
Yes, of course.
So please, when you create a financial services ecosystem, you have to make ecosystem think like RBI.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Of
Fintechs
course,
will create.
that's why I spend time with you or your team. I go and meet my time, spend my homage at RBI to understand.
Prabodh, one last word. I know I'm super out of time.
It says time up now, blinking.
It's been
Yeah.
blinking for such a long
Yeah.
time. One last question. DPI, India, G20, we're seeing announcements. Prime Minister Modi was in the White House. We saw for the first time historic announcement. India is G20 presidency. We're leading the way. Why are we in an inflection point? Why are countries around the world looking into India, leadership from India? You've been in a lot of country conversations, shepherding a lot of countries on DPI thinking. A quick word before we wrap
I
up.
think it's very natural. It's as COVID has shown to many, many countries, digital is not good to have. It's a must-have. It brings resilience to the country, resilience to the society as a whole. And we saw that with education and some of those metrics that came out from India, where we had digital rails, payment rails, really helped us during COVID and so on, right? And our networks of delivery boys and everybody standing up. So I think countries have realized the need for bringing digital as a means to create resilience and inclusion. But do we put an RFP to do this, or do we think like internet? I think that's what India has managed to shift the thinking. India has brought that to the table through G20 presidency to think as big as internet, not by one putting an RFP or procuring some tablets here and computers there and so on. Think big, think protocols, think ecosystem, think entrepreneurship, local entrepreneurship, so that it becomes sustainable means to do it, not by procuring. Procurement is the way, not the way to innovate. So that I think DPI thinking has really brought by India is that. And India's success demonstrated it can be done at scale, massive scale. So there's no more proof. People who come here and actually stay in the country and visit, they go back actually changed. Whatever number of slides you show to them, when they actually visit here, they change the way they think about how digitization can change every person on the street.
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for everybody. What a lovely panel you've been. Thank you so much.